Hi, I'm Michael Jacobson, Director of the Vera Institute of Justice, and I'm here with Professor Paulette to discuss social entrepreneurship. So it probably makes sense to start with how do you define social entrepreneurship?
You know, the term kind of dates back. It's a variation on social innovation, which we've used for a long time. Breakthrough thinking, government reform. It's a new term. It does have a little bit of a business orientation, like that we want to disturb the equilibrium and break through and have these waves of creative destruction and replace the old ways of doing things. And it has some traction. There's an element of value to the term, but don't get hooked on it.
How do organizations nurture entrepreneurship, either at an organizational level or at the individual level?
Well, I think it's creating a culture that gives your people and teams, the organization as a whole, permission to try new ways of doing things. So sometimes it's going to be social entrepreneurship and, an innovative effort, an innovative idea. It might come from an individual, might come from the organization, a team. It might be crowdsourced. Who knows where it comes from, but it's often a combination of old ideas put together in a new way. Inculcate a culture of rigorous thinking and creativity. Let your employees take a pottery course, do training, but encourage creativity in all sorts of ways.
We now operate in a world, and certainly we, Vera, operate in a country where, the economy is sort of melting down at so many levels, and since we work primarily at city and state levels, that's where the fiscal pressure is all felt now. Do you think this environment is conducive to more innovation and more entrepreneurship, or is it tamping down that because there's sort of so much at stake now?
We're also in an environment where things that we fought hard for, really fought hard for, are being dismantled. So we're losing ground while we're under pressure to come up with new things. And one of the things that I do like to emphasize is that you have to know when to stop innovating and start defending what you've already achieved.
One of the reasons I asked that question is because in some parts of the work we do, notably around sort of punishment in prisons, the economic circumstance is actually a help. Right, because states run these massive prison systems, and however they may feel about them ideologically, they just can't do it anymore.
One of the big problems that I'm struggling with and trying to address right now is how to reframe the kind of work that you do into a cost saver, to get it on the agenda as not an expenditure, but a way of doing things better, and to score it so that we don't stop investing in what you do. Because right now, fiscal austerity is being defined solely as budget cutting, right? So we cannot score at the national level, or in most countries, we cannot score the value of prevention and early intervention over a 10-year period.
We do a fair amount of cost-benefit work here, and we're very proud of that work for a number of reasons, but we tie it very specifically to budgeting, right? We don't do a lot of sort of theoretical, cost to society, sort of cost benefit, but what will government save if you do A, B, and C?
There's a term that keeps coming up all the time: scorable event. And if you don't have a scorable event in terms of a proposal that can be shown as a reduction in expenditures, you're going nowhere. So we got to figure out together how to reframe the debate and think about these investments as scorable events. So it's kind of a tricky thing, isn't it? But to reframe the conversation so that it's not a $5 million investment at all. It's a $50 million cut.
In terms of future research or future work, I mean, where are the gaps?
I think the big issue for us in the future is how do we nurture change by whatever means, and how do we defend it once we achieve it? The biggest challenge, I think, to social change today, whether it's through social entrepreneurship or whatever, is complacency. We tend to be so focused on the future and what we're going to do differently and what we want to do new that we tend to book and say, oh yeah, that civil rights thing, that's all solved. You know, that environmental stuff, the ozone stuff, that's all solved. Well, it's not. And, you struggle with this all the time. It's a big issue about how we defend what we've already achieved while moving forward. And how do we alter what we did that's no longer working because the world is so very, very different and changing so rapidly.
Are there bright spots on the horizon? I mean, is there some reason to be sort of optimistic that we can get to where you think we need to go?
I think it goes back to this notion that, this kind of urgent moment in history creates a lot of interest in alternative ways of thinking.
It's so interesting because it's so in line with so much of the work we do and how we talk about the moment, because this really is, in the social justice world, this is a historical moment. It's a moment that is receptive to change in a way that hasn't been receptive to change in a long time, but it is a moment.
We're in a period where that door is only going to stay open if we're willing to push hard against it with real power on the side of social change.
So with that thought, it seems like a perfect time to end the interview. Thank you so much for coming here and doing this.
Thanks for doing your work. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Okay.